very serious second thoughts about doing this story, but possibly a message in it might make it worthwhile. Christmas tree, getting the Christmas tree about 16 years later. On a quiet afternoon, about mid-December of 1952, I was resting in my hospital bed. It was the first bed just inside the door of Ward 2-2, which was the medical chest ward in the St. Albans Naval Hospital in Jamaica Plain, New York. I had joined the United States Marine Corps in January 1951, and because of chest injuries received while serving overseas earlier this year, on May 7th, I ended up in the Camp Lejeune Naval Hospital in North Carolina. The doctors there feared the possibility of my chest becoming infected with any of the germs or viruses that may be found around hospitals. So I was placed in complete and sterile isolation, where I remained for many weeks. My room was a light pea green, and the doctors and corpsmen that came in to tend me were always in their sterile pea green gowns, resembling little more than hovering pea green ghosts, with only narrow slits that represented their eyes. One day near the end of summer, after the many endless weeks in this sterile confinement, the sterile conditions were being relaxed, and the corpsman opened the window beside my bed a few inches. It was a beautiful sunny day outside, and I could hear the gardener mowing the lawn 2 stories below. A light breeze was coming in the window, and it carried a small blade of grass up and held it against the window screen. After these many endless weeks in this sterile isolation, to once again see and smell a little blade of grass was most unforgettable. I could see all of the beauty in God's great creation right there in that little blade of grass. When the time came to close the window, and I watched that little blade of grass fall from the screen, I felt that I had just lost the greatest of treasures. I was shipped here to the St. Albans Naval Hospital in October, and at present I have no hope of getting out at any time in the foreseeable future. I have recently started to regain a little strength and walking around some, but this morning the doctors have been working on my chest again, and as I lie here now, my chest hurts. I am rather groggy from the procedures, and I see little to hope for in the future. Christmas is in the air, but I feel only the deepest of despair. While here in my bed, under the dark and gloomy clouds, I noticed a fellow dressed in a business suit standing just inside the door near the foot of my bed. He saw I was awake and looking at him, so he came closer and asked, "Are you Sergeant Burt?" I said I was. He then asked where my home was, and if I would be going there for Christmas. I answered and told him there was no hope of that. My dad was on sick leave from the railroad, and all my service pay had to go home to support my folks. His final question was, if I could go, how would I travel? Strange question, but I told him I would go by train. He said a polite goodbye and left. I thought little of it because visitors often stop by when passing to visit a moment and offer encouragement. I had recently noticed on my chart that I was now listed as terminally ill with survival possibilities, which meant that they couldn't be sure. A few days later, I was transferred to Ward C-18 with other terminally ill patients that were still ambulatory. Patients with ailments such as Hodgkin's disease, cancer, and leukemia. This ward was out in the older section of the hospital in a very quiet area where we were by ourselves. Back in the open ward, even good-natured humor, though well-intended, could be most cruel. As could be expected, the general feelings here were rather subdued. An occasional tear was seen as normal and even expected. Everyone kept to themselves with their own thoughts. There were no false hopes or empty promises. There was, however, a degree of humor on occasion, such as referring to ourselves as the Death Squad. The Monday before Christmas, which was on a Thursday that year, the patients that could go home were getting ready to leave, fully realizing there was little doubt that this would be their last Christmas. Even so, there was a degree of Christmas cheer in the air, except around my bed. I felt on the deepest of hopeless despair and had the ends of the pillow curled over my face to shut out the world that I was no longer a part of. But we must never give up hope. Even when faced with a hopeless situation, there is a degree of hope, and that is something we can always cling to. I had given up all hope as I faced my darkest hours, but there is always hope. I heard a voice ask, "Sergeant Burke?" I looked up, and that same fellow was standing by my bed. After a pleasant greeting, he handed me an envelope and said, "I've checked with your doctors, and this is your ticket home. Have a Merry Christmas." That gift and the gentleman that gave it to me were from the 52 Association. It was a Jewish organization that aided servicemen. There was no commercial or advertisement, just quiet generosity, well remembered and greatly appreciated. I hadn't been home for last year's Christmas, but I was allowed a few days home this year, and we did have a Merry Christmas, although it was rather subdued for obvious reasons. Fortunately, there was one little chore that greatly helped to make it a Merry Christmas for me. Once again, I was able to go out and get the Christmas tree. I could not walk far or fast or even uphill, but slowly along the old pasture fence. I cut a small hemlock, small enough to sit on the table, and without any further trimming. It was a beautiful little tree, decorated with a decoration from my mom's old powder blue tin can. There was considerable therapy in that simple little act of once again getting the Christmas tree. It was the beginning of a long road to recovery. Time heals all wounds, they tell us, but it can never erase the scars. Later, the following years, I was sent home from the hospital to await my eventual discharge. Long ago, I realized how unfortunate it is that so often we don't appreciate what we have until we lose it.